Hey everyone! In this video today, I'm going to show you guys how to make this really awesome and unique sort of rainbow basket weave friendship bracelet pattern. Almost kind of confusing on the eyes, but a really cool pattern nonetheless, and also very easy to work up in my opinion, so let's just jump right into it. For this pattern, you are going to need 2 red strings, 2 orange strings, 2 yellow strings, 2 green strings, 2 blue strings, and 2 purple strings. So in total, you will need 12 strings, and for each strand, you want to measure about 34 to 40 inches. It really depends on how long your bracelet needs to be. And if you want to have a loop at the top, like I do for this bracelet here, you will want to measure 1 string from each of your 6 colors, but you are going to double the measurement. So instead of having 2 strings from each one that are 36 to 40 inches, you would instead measure 1 string from each of these and measure out 68 to 80 inches and then fold it in half. Now I am going to be using a rainbow color palette because it's just a lot easier to visualize when learning a pattern. If you wanted to do a sort of monochromatic color scheme, then you would do number 1 as your lightest and then number 6 as your darkest, or vice versa. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you would have your own color palette match accordingly. But like I said, rainbows are just really easy to visualize, so that's what I'm going with. Speaking of the loop as well, this pattern works up perfectly with a diagonal shape start, which I will have a tutorial linked in the top right corner for that. But in order to achieve this with a loop, I made the threaded loop first, and then I did a square knot to kind of gather all of the strands together, and then I started my diagonal shape start. Now of course you do not need to make a diagonal shape start. You can just start the bracelet normally. I will say, because this diagonal is kind of like a candy stripe formation, so to speak, you'll want to make your first few rows a little bit on the looser side, because if you start tying them too tight, they're going to try and go in a straight line, and it's just going to be frustrating. Now, the only really weird thing to start off with this pattern is the string order. As you can see, our middle squares do make our rainbow, and then the edges will always stay the same, but in order to do that, we do have to make things a little bit strange. So starting from the left, you'll order your strings red, red, blue, blue, yellow, yellow, green, green, orange, orange, and purple, purple. And the numbers on the screen are whatever you determine your own color palette to be, 1 through 6. The color order will constantly change until it starts back from the top, but the steps are always going to be the same no matter what. So it does make this pretty quick and easy to work up. So we are going to start off with our outermost left strand, which if you are starting off the pattern for the very first time, it's going to be number 1. And you're going to make forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And then we're going to come back to our outermost left strand again, which will be the second strand of your group of 2 colors here. And we are going to do forward knots across the next 2 strings to the right of it. And then we're going to move over to our third group of strands from the left here. So we have first pair, second pair, third pair. And we're going to take the left strand of the 2, and we are going to do backward knots across the next 2 strands to the left of it. And then we're going to come back to the other strand of the pair. And again, we're going to do backward knots across the next 2 strands to the left of it. And really quickly, we're going to come back over to the outermost left side. We're going to take our outermost left strand, and again, we're going to do forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And then come back to our outermost left strand again and do forward knots across the next 2 strands to the right of it. And so now we're going to come back over to our 3rd pair of strands from the left here. We're going to take the right strand of the 2, and we are going to make a forward knot onto the strand to the right of it, and then on the next one over we'll do a forward backward knot. And then we're going to come back over to the other strand of the 2, and we're going to make a forward backward knot onto the strand to the right of it. And then with that same strand, we are going to make backward knots across the next 2 strands to the left of it. And then we're going to come back over to that other strand, and we are going to make backward knots across the next 3 strands to the left of it. And now in this sort of middle section here, we are going to pick up the group of strands that is second in line from the outermost right side. So we have our first pair here, and then we're picking up the second pair. And with the left strand of the 2, we are going to do backward knots across the next 3 strands to the left of it. And then on this 4th one here, we're going to do a backward forward knot. And then we're going to pick up the other strand of that pair, and we're going to do backward knots across the next 2 strands to the left of it, and then on this 3rd one we'll do a backward forward knot. And then we're going to come back to that other strand of our pair, and really quickly we're going to do a forward knot onto that strand to the right of it. And then we're going to move over to the next pair, which is going to again be the second pair from the right side. And we're going to pick up the right strand of the 2, and we're going to do forward knots across the next 2 strands to the right of it. And then come back to your other string from the pair and do forward knots across the next 3 strings to the right of it. And again, move back over to your pair of strands that are second from the right. You're going to take the left strand of the 2 and make backward knots across the next 2 strands to the left of it. And then move back over to the other strand of the 2 and again make backward knots across the next 2 strands to the left of it. And then for our very final section, you're going to move back over to the second group of strands from the right yet again. And with the right strand of the 2, you're going to do forward knots across the next 2 strands to the right of it. And then come back to the other strand of the 2 and do forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And that is the whole pattern. That is all of the steps you take to keep working on the bracelet until you have it as long as you need it to be. Now, obviously, you can see that our color order has changed. So if you want to follow the video along again from the beginning, you absolutely can. You just need to keep in mind that your color order is going to keep changing for almost 30 rows. So your string order is going to be always changing until you finally get back to the top, which would be around here. So I try to make sure that I didn't explain that too confusing, so that way if you do need to follow it along again, it should hopefully still make sense and apply no matter where in your color order you're working on. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video today. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see my previous upload, you can go ahead and click on this side, but YouTube thinks you might like this one. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.